As we close out 2025, I want to look forward to 2026 for Square Enix and what we can expect from their games in that year. Now, we know a few things, but there's a lot of things that we don't know, and I'm hoping I can spend today's video talking about what to expect and where those games could be. So with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. If you want to support the content, please consider hitting that like button, and if you want to stick around for some more Square Enix content, you're already in the right place. Just hit that subscribe button. Now, believe it or not, this video might be just like the video I did last year. You can watch it if you want to compare and contrast, but we did speak about Square Enix 2025 back in 2024. So there's a few things that I just want to go over before we dive into what we can expect in 2026, and we need to start out with the 2025 release schedule that we got. Now, a lot of you might come in the comments talking about all of the financial things and all of the reports. We're not going over any of that today. I'm just strictly here for the games, having a bit of fun, looking back on the year and looking forward, so don't expect any of that talk here. But before we dive into Square Enix and its 2026, Instant Gaming have a absolutely massive giveaway, giving away a ROG Ally X and a ROG Xbox Ally and 10 Xbox Game Passes, and all you've got to do is use the link in the description, follow the instructions, and you're in the chance to win. The giveaway runs from the 19th to the 28th, and the winners will be announced on the Instant Gaming Discord. What an opportunity to cap off 2025 for yourself, and while you're on Instant Gaming's website, why not check out all the Steam games that they have, because they have them at incredible prices. You can't go wrong. Not only will you be supporting the channel, but you've got a chance to win an incredible gift for Christmas. So let's look back at 2025 on exactly what we got, because last year I said that we didn't have anything. We only knew of a few games, the same games that we're probably going to mention in today's video, but apart from that we didn't know. They're in the middle of a restructure and they were redoing a few things in the company and pumping out a multi-platform strategy, of which I feel, just as a note, that is still in progress and we're not yet reached the end of it. You would have also noticed that they didn't have much of a presence at the Game Awards, except a very small couple of seconds promoting FF7 Remake on the Switch 2, but this was very much like last year, where the only presence that they had was a quick trailer for Rebirth coming to PC. But looking back at 2025, on January 23rd, we got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to PC, which was great to see. We then forward on to March, where we got a shadow drop of Saga Frontier 2 Remastered, which came out of the blue, coming out on all systems. Then we build up to the Switch 2, and Square must have had some kind of deal with Nintendo, because they brought out a HD remaster of Bravely Default, of which I really enjoyed going back to and having access to it. I do hope that maybe in 2026 we'll see that go to other platforms, or whether it's got some kind of deal with Nintendo. We shall see. Then just a couple of days later, Final Fantasy 16 got shadow dropped on the Xbox systems after years of them waiting to get it, which was great, and this falls into that multi-platform strategy. They're trying to get everything everywhere. At the end of July, Romancing Saga 2 got a Switch 2 update. Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven was a great remake, but I don't think it did that well on Nintendo Switch 2, though it is really nice for them to see to go back to their library to bring some of those older games to the newer systems. Let's hope that they dive back into some of the games that they have on the Switch and bring some Switch 2 versions to the forefront. We then go to August, and Triangle Strategy came out on both PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles, which was nice to see, again falling into that multi-platform strategy. They did a lot of this in 2024, of going back into their back catalogue that was exclusive to one console and then bringing it to others. We've seen that with Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 to both PlayStation and Xbox, and vice versa. As we go later into 2025, this is where we have the full game releases and all of them hitting a multi-platform release, starting off with Final Fantasy Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, a fantastic remaster of the original Final Fantasy Tactics on PlayStation 1, and that came out on all systems on September 30th. Exactly a month later, we got Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake, capping off the trilogy of those HD 2D games, again coming out on all systems. And then again, just over a month later, we got Octopath Traveler 0, a reimagining or like a rebuilding of the mobile Champions of the Continent game, put into a single player game, and that is an incredible game. 100 hours of content, absolutely must play if you haven't already, and it is at a great price on all systems. And that was pretty much our 2025. You can see that they started off the year much like that they left 2024 by getting more games out onto more platforms and keeping that up. Yes, we did have the bit of the anomaly of Bravely Default just coming out on Nintendo. We'll see if that changes in 2026, but they were just championing in that multi-platform strategy, and it looks like they were much relying on remakes and remasters in the midst of this reset that they're having within the company. I do believe that this is going to carry on into 2026. So let's start off talking about 2026 by talking about the games that we know exist. Let's start off the ones that actually have dates. And as of right now, there are 3 titles. We have Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to Nintendo Switch 2 and Xbox in January. I suspect that will do very well, especially on the Nintendo Switch 2. Some may say a little late to the party, Square, but having the ability to put your game on more platforms for more people to play is only good in the end, no matter how late you leave it. We then fast forward to February and we get Dragon Quest VII Reimagined coming out on all platforms, which is great to see, and I'm very excited to dive into that. Make sure you stay tuned to the channel if you want any more updates on that game leading up to release. And then a game that doesn't have a release date as of yet, but it's coming out on all platforms. It currently has a demo on the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is The Adventures of Elliot: The Millennium Tales. So there are 3 games that have dates, or at least a window, are coming out on all platforms. I suspect this is going to carry on in 2026. And when it comes to The Adventures of Elliot, I think that we'll hear more about this in a Nintendo presentation at the beginning of the year. Maybe there's one in February or March. I can't remember when the directs usually are at the beginning of the year. And this will probably get its release date. And I would not be surprised if this ends up being before April of 2026. Now let's move on to the games that we know exist, but they don't have any dates stuck to them whatsoever. And these seem to be the same games we spoke about last year. That is Dragon Quest XII, Kingdom Hearts 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, and a new challenger is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Switch 2 and on the Xbox. So let's start off with Dragon Quest XII. I firmly believe that we'll see something about this on Dragon Quest Day, which falls in May. I do think that Square going forward are having these smaller marketing cycles and these nice little shadow drops for smaller IPs or just remasters that come out of the blue where they don't really feel like the marketing will add value to the game, like Saga Frontier Remastered. Obviously, Dragon Quest XII doesn't fall into that category, but I suspect if and when it gets talked about during Dragon Quest Day that we'll probably see around a year turnaround of that coming out. Obviously, if we don't see it in May, which I think is unlikely, it means that it's not ready. I think they're waiting for their games to be ready before they talk about them again. And that brings us to Kingdom Hearts 4. Again, the same. It's quite clear, and they admitted that they announced it way too early during that anniversary orchestra thing that they had going on. They updated us about it with some screenshots, but I think that might have been just softening the blow of closing the mobile game missing link. But I do believe that 2026 is where we'll probably hear about it, which is crazy because what I'm saying here really paints a picture of what to expect going from 2026 and beyond, because Square are ready to bring out the AAA big guns of the big 3 that they have here, because Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, we spoke about this earlier in the week. I think that we'll also hear about this too in 2026, which is crazy when you think about it. And when I'm saying, oh, we'll hear about Kingdom Hearts 4, Dragon Quest 12, and Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 all in the same year, I kind of question myself of, are we going to hear about all 3 this year? I think there's a very strong chance that we will, and that will really set the scene for 2027 and beyond. Maybe there might be a spread here, there, or somewhere, and one of these 3 games will have to wait a little bit longer to come out, and I'll leave that up to you in the comments to decide, because I haven't decided right now what I would like to see first. I think for me personally, it's got to be Remake Part 3, as it is finishing up a trilogy, but I am very interested to hear your thoughts. And then there's Rebirth on Switch 2 and Xbox. I think we'll hear about this in the middle of the year, but I think it will release within 2026, probably this time next year, maybe a little bit before. So that's everything that we know about, and we can expect that even though there's no other games apart from these that I spoke about announced, we know that Square with the smaller games are going to announce them within a 6 or even 4 month window. So we can expect some more games, but what kind of games are we going to be getting? I think we're going to see very much the same that we've seen this year in remakes and remasters while they prep up these bigger games that they are going to be starting to market in this year. So I would suspect that we'll see, like we are, a Dragon Quest in Dragon Quest 7. Will we see another Dragon Quest? We might do. They have been absolutely pushing it as much as they can in the West or in general, and I've been such a fan of that. So I'm excited to see what they do next. Will they go back to a Final Fantasy? I know a lot of people want to see a new Final Fantasy in Final Fantasy 17, but I think that's well off and no need to talk about that right now because we have nothing to go off. But I'm going to return just for a second to a Final Fantasy IX remake in the chances that that might be a 2026 game with a 6-month marketing cycle. Am I hoping? Am I coping? Probably, but I'm going to mention it here and I'm going to leave it there because a lot of you are like, hey, Jetton's talking about the Final Fantasy IX remake again. But it's a possibility. Keeping on the subject of Final Fantasy, what a lot of companies are doing at the moment is they are making native executables of their older games that may have came out on PlayStation 3 or even PlayStation 4, adding a few bells and whistles to keep up with the times. And I think we can all agree that a Final Fantasy that will benefit from this would be the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy. Now, a lot of you may say, hey, we can play it on Xbox, we can play it on PC, Xbox via backwards compatibility, and then through PC with the ports. But the ports are not great. I've tried to run them on my PC and I need a few mods to support that. And it's great that you can go via backwards compatibility on the Xbox and get that 4K up-res. But I think a native port with quality of life features would do the game some good and get some new eyes on it. So I could see that coming out in 2026 as well. Other games, one I probably can see coming out next year would be a Chrono Trigger HD 2D remake, much akin to what we got with the Dragon Quest games. You can say that I'm pretty far off with that, but I can see it as a possibility. There's so many possibilities for Square in 2026, and I do think that they're going to be games from 4 to 6 to 8 month marketing cycles, or even shadow drops for very smaller titles like a Saga Frontier. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Romance in Saga 3, since the success of the second game that came out a couple of years ago. Absolutely love that. But the possibilities are endless. I could bring out all these old IPs. I could say Parasite Eve is coming back in 2026. I don't really think it is, but I do think Square have a goldmine of their IPs, and maybe they should have a look while they're biding time for these newer releases in their Kingdom Hearts, Dragon Quest, and Final Fantasy series. They should really dive into making those older games fresh and accessible for newer players, because we all hear about the Xenogears of the world, and we all hear about the Parasite Eves, and we all hear about the Vagrant stories, but they're stuck on PlayStation, and the only way to play that right now is whether you own the disc or you go back and emulate it. So there are gold mines that Square can dive into, and I think there are going to be a couple that we are going to see come to light in 2026, but that's just me guessing and me speculating. The lineup so far of games that we do have announced, I'm excited for, but I'm excited for those smaller things now that they announce things 6 months in advance. So it'll be very interesting to see what is brought to the table from Square in 2026. What I'm more interested in, though, is hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. So let me know what you think Square Enix will be bringing to the table in 2026. Do you have any guesses on any release dates or any IPs they might bring in? Heck, I didn't even mention any original or new IPs like The Adventures of Elliot. It's a possibility. I appreciate your time, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.